Imagine being born a princess, only to face unspeakable tragedy, and then being reborn to rewrite your destiny. But this isn't a typical story of royalty. This is the tale of a goddess who rose from ashes, who defied death itself, to claim her rightful place in the universe. And her journey began in the towering, mysterious mountains, far from the luxuries of a royal palace. Today, on the first day of Navaratri, we honor Shailaputri. But who is she, really? And why did her journey begin with a fire so fierce? It consumed not just her body, but her very soul. Brace yourself, because this is no ordinary goddess. This is the daughter of the mountains, but before she was reborn as Shailaputri, she lived a very different life. A life marked by betrayal, tragedy, and sacrifice. Let's step back in time to understand why Shailaputri had to rise from the ashes of her past. Once, long before Shailaputri walked the earth, there was Sati. Her name meant truth, but her life was filled with turmoil. She was the beloved wife of the great ascetic, Lord Shiva, an unconventional, mysterious deity who roamed the mountains, draped in ashes, lost in meditation. Sati adored him with all her heart. But there was one man who despised their union with every fiber of his being. King Daksha, her father. Daksha's hatred for Shiva was no secret. He, a powerful ruler, could not accept that his daughter, a princess, had chosen to marry an ascetic, a hermit who lived far from civilization. In his eyes, Shiva was unworthy, and when Daksha's pride was wounded, there was nothing he wouldn't do to avenge it. So, when the time came for Daksha to hold a grand yajna, inviting all the gods and goddesses of the cosmos, there was one name conspicuously absent from the guest list: Lord Shiva. Sati knew something was wrong. As the news of her father's great gathering spread across the heavens, it became clear. Daksha had not only insulted Shiva, but her as well. How could her own father treat her with such contempt? Her heart, once full of love for both her husband and her father, now burned with a new emotion: rage. Against Shiva's advice, Sati went to confront her father. She arrived at the yajna uninvited, her presence a shock to the grand assembly of gods and sages. All eyes turned to her as she stood before her father, demanding an explanation. But Daksha, filled with arrogance, mocked her. He ridiculed Shiva, called him a madman, an outcast, a beggar. The words cut through Sati's heart like a dagger. In that moment, the weight of her father's betrayal was too much to bear. With tears in her eyes, she made a fateful decision. She walked to the sacred fire of the yajna, raised her arms, and called upon the divine flames to consume her. "I will not live in this world where my husband is insulted, where my love is mocked," she declared. And before anyone could stop her, the flames engulfed her completely. Her body turned to ash. Her soul disappeared, or so it seemed. But what happens to a goddess who dies unjustly? Do her sacrifices vanish with the wind? Or does the universe, in its infinite wisdom, have other plans? Sati's story should have ended with the fire, but instead, it set the stage for something far greater. A new life, a new beginning. Deep within the heart of the mountains, a child was born. She was unlike any other. From the moment she opened her eyes, the earth seemed to tremble. The winds whispered her name, Shailaputri, the daughter of the Himalayas. But this was no ordinary child. Shailaputri was Sati, reborn. And though she didn't remember her past, the universe did. Her soul carried the weight of ancient memories, and her destiny was still intertwined with the one she had loved: Shiva. But Shailaputri's path to reclaim her divine place wouldn't be easy. Darkness still lurked in the shadows. Forces greater than she could imagine were waiting to test her strength. Years passed, and Shailaputri grew into a woman of unimaginable grace and strength. But as she matured, so did the whispers of her destiny. Deep within her heart, she felt a pull, a magnetic force that called her to something, or someone. She could not explain it, but she knew that her life in the peaceful mountains was not where her journey would end. One day, during her meditation, she felt the presence of something dark. The once peaceful forest around her suddenly felt cold. From the shadows emerged creatures with glowing red eyes, demons drawn to her growing power. They had sensed who she truly was, and they knew that if she was allowed to fulfill her destiny, their reign of chaos would end. The demons didn't attack outright. Instead, they whispered temptations into her ears. "Why live a life of austerity, princess? You could have everything you desire," one of them hissed. "We can give you a kingdom more powerful than the heavens." But Shailaputri, though young, was wise beyond her years. She knew that these temptations were meant to break her. She closed her eyes and focused harder on her meditation. But the demons didn't stop. As days turned into nights and nights into weeks, the darkness surrounding her intensified. Each time she resisted, the demons grew more desperate, their whispers turning into screams, their promises turning into threats. And then, they attacked. Shailaputri's eyes snapped open, glowing with a divine light. The demons, sensing that their time was running out, charged at her with terrifying speed. But they had underestimated her. With a single glance, Shailaputri summoned the power that had been dormant within her all along. Her body was no longer just that of a princess. It was the embodiment of the mountains, unyielding and indestructible. She rose, and with her, the earth itself trembled. The ground beneath the demons cracked open, swallowing them whole. Their screams echoed into nothingness, and silence returned to the forest. Shailaputri stood tall, her heart pounding, but her spirit unbroken. In that moment, she understood. The force that had been pulling her, the destiny she had been born for, it was all leading her back to Shiva. And nothing, no demon, no force of darkness, would stand in her way. After her victory over the demons, Shailaputri's path became clear. She resumed her penance with renewed focus, meditating for years, until one day, the very air around her shifted. A familiar presence filled the forest. It was him, Lord Shiva. When their eyes met, it was as if the universe itself held its breath. Though Shailaputri had no memory of her life as Sati, her soul recognized him instantly. Shiva, too, knew who she was, the woman he had lost, the love he thought he would never find again. Moved by her devotion, Shiva embraced her once more, reuniting them not just as husband and wife, but as cosmic forces destined to maintain balance in the universe. Shailaputri's story is one of resilience, transformation, and cosmic justice. Her journey from Sati's tragic sacrifice to Shailaputri's victorious rebirth reminds us that no matter how deep the wounds of our past, we can rise again, stronger, braver, and more determined. As we celebrate day 1 of Navaratri, we invoke the strength of Shailaputri within ourselves. Her story teaches us that the greatest battles are often fought in the depths of our hearts, and the demons we face may not always be external. But with unwavering faith and determination, we too can conquer them. But this is just the beginning. Tomorrow, we meet a goddess whose devotion was so intense, even the gods couldn't ignore her. She walked barefoot across burning lands, fasting for years, just to win over her divine love. What challenges did she face, and how did her penance change the course of history? Join us on day 2 of Navaratri to discover the story of Brahmacharini, a tale of devotion, sacrifice, and the power of unwavering focus.